So it begins again. Welcome to CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 6, Episode 227.
Dead Children's Playground in Huntsville, Alabama. Listener comments, plus Wild and Weird, West Virginia.
That's right. So, welcome to the podcast. If this is your very first time listening, I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And this is the CreepGeeks Podcast. Okay, so it's been a minute since we've done a podcast because we've been kind of busy. We've been on the road seeing spooky America.
Yes.
So, not to beat a dead horse, because we've had this conversation amongst ourselves many, many times, it seems like on this particular trip that we decided to take, which has been 2 years in the making, the odds were stacked against us.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah. So we left a very early 5 o'clock in the afternoon to finally get on the road, and it just seemed like we had nothing but issues trying to get out of here. Even before, we had a quick trip to the emergency room.
Fantastic.
Yes, where you were dying. But basically, after about an hour or so, they said, hey, you're not dying, and then sent you home.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. So it was kind of one of those things where it was what it was. So anyway, we got on the road, and the whole goal for us was to take a trip and do a couple different things, really.
Visit a few spooky places that have been on our list for a while.
Yes.
Some of them are known, been on various documentaries like Small Town Monsters, or they're places we've had on our bucket list for a long time.
Yes.
And it seems like we were saying the odds were stacked against us. It took an inordinate or insurmountable amount of effort just to get out of the state of North Carolina. And then as we proceeded through our little adventure, just getting across the United States, just certain things happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where you make the plans and then they just go to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah. And it was funny because most of those plans were
well thought out, plan, like
strategic, efficiency, fuel efficiency plus time efficiency. But what I was going to say was most of those plans were east of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
Which I found very odd.
Yeah, it was a strange thing. It was almost like the Appalachian Mountains didn't want to let us go.
Yeah.
So we had to kind of break free, and we didn't really get free until
for
about
like a
Texas.
week.
So yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah.
Really, so what we did was we took our van, we converted our van, we made it into a multiple investigation platform, we loaded it up, we got it ready to be sort of habitated, right? We could live in it for a couple of weeks, and we filled it full of gas, and we took off. Right, that's the short version. Long version is we put solar panels up, we did all this stuff. It rained for 5 days. I was dodging, it's going to stop raining for 30 seconds. Let me run out there real quick and do something. It was a thing, and we had these big plans to travel. And for a while there, it seemed like our spooky adventure, right, our spooky season adventure trip was just turning into a let's go get food from different places. I mean, it's like, wow, instead of doing a spooky thing, we should just do food.
We should just be a food podcast.
Yeah, it's like, hey, there's Buc-ee's, the world's largest gas station with 100 gas pumps. Let's go in here. Oh, and while you're there, try some of our delicious beaver nuggets.
Or,
which are delicious.
Yes, or where to get a surprisingly good brisket. You know?
And then it's like, and then later on, and we're going to cover this because we're going to cover our spooky season trip in multiple episodes because we've been gone for a while. We were gone for about a month, and it's taken us about that long to get this podcast out. Mm-hmm. Hey, let's go to New Orleans and get a beignet.
Or, hey, where's a great place to get hot sauce?
Yeah. Or, hey, I can't remember. Oh, hey, let's go to Whataburger and get a green chili double cheeseburger, which is delicious. So it was a thing. So we took our little trip and we took off and we left late in the afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was very late. We were very tired and very aggravated with each other. I'm sure one of us more than the other.
Oh, okay.
See, look at you. I was talking about you being aggravated with me. Because and honestly, it just didn't feel right. Every time we were supposed to leave a good week before, it just didn't feel right. And finally we got on the road and I said, okay, I feel like we're ready. And we weren't. It is what it is. So, but we would like to talk in this particular episode of the CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 6, Episode 227, a place that we thought would be cool to go to.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen it on TV multiple times, and it looked like a kind of an interesting place to go to. And they always did the same thing. They showed a little clip. I don't want to give it away.
And as far as going to a spooky location, in theory, this went right, unlike the other locations.
Yes.
So.
And this particular location is the Dead Children's Playground, which is located in Huntsville, Alabama. Right? And this is the place where, if you've ever seen some of these shows, and there's been a bunch of them because it's been on multiple shows, where you'll see just one swinging around acting all crazy, and the rest of them not moving at all.
Yeah.
And it's in a place called the Dead Children's Cemetery Playground, or Dead Children's Playground, and it's located in a cemetery.
Yeah, Maple Hill Cemetery. Did you know the name of the Dead Children's Cemetery, which nobody, even like local city officials, don't even call it by its real name? It's actually called Drost Park.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I just thought they called it Dead Children's Playground.
I know, but even like when, and going into the history of this place, even when they were having that controversy about possibly tearing it down and all this other stuff, even the city officials weren't calling it Drost Park. They were calling, the Dead Children's Playground.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. And I'll be honest with you, as we go through and we do social media, as we do, you have to be aware of titles and things like that.
Yeah.
It's like even if you were doing a documentary sort of podcast series or making videos on World War II, you couldn't use the N-word.
Yeah.
You know what the N-word is, right? Nazi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you might get banned. And so, when we did a YouTube video that accompanies this podcast, and I was really afraid to put that in the title.
I know.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to type this in here and hit it, and then they're just going to blow all of our stuff away like they did when I broke my neck in a hospital, right? When we were in the hospital, we lost all of our social media stuff. It just got banned.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And see.
That's why we don't talk about the C word.
Oh, you mean the tinfoil hat word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because guess what happens? You get banned. It's like, okay. And we don't want to be banned because we put too much time, effort, and money to bring you this lackluster podcast. Seriously. Okay.
But getting back to it, it's funny when you do research on this location, besides the 20-second clips you see on television or in YouTube videos, the name isn't mentioned. So when you're doing research, you're looking at all these websites that say Dead Children's Playground, Dead Children, and you're like, this is getting morbid just by reading the words over and over
you just
again.
know, you're like, man, I am going to wreck my search history. It's just going to start putting stuff that you don't want to see in there. But
it also puts you in a mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm going to accept something morbid.
Yeah.
So.
But that didn't happen.
And
really. So, it was a strange thing. All right. So we find this place in Huntsville, Alabama, and we're driving our van. Our van is not the biggest van in the world, but it is a full-size, full-on van. We use it to sleep and travel and do investigations in and stuff like that. And the people that know us know that we have this big van, and we had a bigger van before that, or at least it seemed like it was bigger. The point I'm trying to make is that the roads were super narrow.
Yeah.
Because this place in Huntsville, Alabama, the cemetery, Maple Hill Cemetery, is very old. Goes back past, that's got Civil War and
Spanish flu and all that other stuff.
Confederate soldiers are buried there. So it has some history. It's a very old cemetery, and the roads are very narrow. But we actually made it, no problem, because we, by accident, went the correct way.
Yeah.
Unlike our trusty GPS system called Google Maps that keeps trying to show us this amazing green leaf that's supposed to save us all this amazing gas mileage by showing us the most efficient route to get somewhere.
However, that most efficient route did take us through the correct entrance and did not take us through the actual funeral that was happening at the cemetery.
Yes, because that would have been uncool.
Yes.
To pull up, because But, it's a thing. Anyway, and that later on, we'll talk about that little green leaf putting us in some of the most dangerous areas in the U.S., trying to save us about 12 cents. Okay, so we get there and we pull in, and it's a nice little place. We couldn't exactly see the cemetery. Well, we could see the cemetery, but you couldn't exactly see too far into the cemetery because you sort of split the difference, right?
Yeah.
And I assumed that the cemetery, right, sort of encompassed the dead children's playground. Like in the middle of it was the playground, but it wasn't. It's actually off to the side, which is kind of nice. That makes it even better.
Yeah.
You know, because I was thinking, who would build a cemetery playground for kids to play in the middle of a cemetery? I just thought the whole thing was kind of morbid, right?
And all the descriptions make it out that way.
Yeah, like you're going to go cruising through a cemetery, and in the middle of it will just be a playground.
Yeah. No, this is actually like a separate, like...
It's like a park area.
Yeah.
It's small, and it's where you have a set of swings and some other playground type equipment there. And as soon as we pulled in and we found a place to park, we'd been there exactly 42 seconds before we actually got approached by a local. And I don't know if you want to say his name is Jeff.
Yeah.
But, and we had a conversation with Jeff. And to be honest with you, some of the conversation that occurred with this complete stranger who we'd never seen and or met before ever, in about a minute and 15 seconds turned into a random sort of, I found ancient pornography in a house I've been rehabbing. Just a weird thing, man. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm thinking, hey, welcome to Alabama, right?
I mean,
but I got to clarify. At the end of the conversation, though, it was that, okay, this guy is really not a weirdo pervert. He was just genuinely shocked at what he found.
And he had to show he had to tell somebody. Yeah, he had to tell somebody.
And I guess he figured that he could tell us because for whatever reason, he thought that we knew, about vintage things and collecting things and knew the value of things like that. And we do. So he was kind of right in that assumption.
But that's weird,
Yeah, it's like he said, because he's like, I got to show you guys this. I think you'd appreciate it.
Yeah, because
And then he whips out this, weird pornography from like the 50s, 60s, right?
Yeah.
I was like, but we did appreciate it because it was old. It was in pristine condition. It was like a newspaper type thing. It wasn't like a weirdo book. But it was in great condition because, he remodeled some houses, and this is what he found in the walls and that kind of thing. And these were old houses because primarily we had found that he was familiar with Virginia in some of the same areas that we lived in Virginia, and he knew about the old houses that we lived in. And so it became one of those things where sometimes when you remodel an old house or you rejuvenate or rehabilitate an old house, you find artifacts from the past. And that's really what it was. Yep. So it really wasn't about the subject matter of the stuff that he showed us. It was primarily that, hey, look what I found. I thought this was pretty interesting, and he said he couldn't believe this sort of thing existed back then. Yeah,
because it was kind of controversial.
It was controversial for then, not a big deal for now. So it kind of was what it was. But we did talk about ghosts and things like that. With him, and he let us know that in that particular area there are people, paranormal investigators, they come investigate all the time. And the idea that, in this cemetery playground for children, which is off to the side, is that there has been lots of activity that occurred there.
He had a relative who worked for the cemetery.
Right.
As like a groundskeeper at night.
And the relative would let people in to do investigations. Yes. I don't know if that's exactly legal or not, but
that relative also didn't make that decision to start letting people slide in until he had his own experience, which was he was in the middle of the cemetery, but from the middle of the cemetery, he heard like screams or yells or something like that. And he walked all the way over to the playground and nothing was happening.
Right. And so there's been lots of noise and things like that. And then if you watch the clips on TV, there's been swinging movements and possibly the sounds of playing and things, So it was a good thing. So we get there and we decide we're going to, and this is in the middle of the day because it just happened to work out that way with our trip. It's a lot of places we actually want to be in during the day. And you got out and decided, okay, it's time to go take a walk around and see what we can see. And I didn't make like a foot outside the van before I was called to by this gentleman. And we had a conversation, and he was telling me about a different guy, right? And he was telling me about some experiences he had in that area and in the dead children's playground. And he just sort of recounted some things, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And about 25 minutes later, it was like, I got to go. So we can kind of do a little walk around. And so what we wound up doing is we wound up doing sort of a impromptu investigation because we were primarily there as sightseers to see what the deal was, right? Because seen it on TV, I thought it'd be a great place to go. Overall, it wasn't bad. So what we did was we recorded it and we have it for you to listen to on the podcast.
Yeah,
it's pretty much what it boils down to, right? Because that's kind of what we're going to be doing with the upcoming episodes of the CreepGeeks Podcast, with the exception of some of the things that we talk about related to events that we're going to be doing. It's primarily to sort of talk about the places that we went, because we took this spooky season trip as a means to get out there and sort of see some of the stuff we've been wanting to see for a while, because we created sort of a list.
Yeah.
And the list is a list that was primarily generated by sitting around not being able to do anything because of 2019 in general and some things that happened.
2020. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, and into 2020, right?
Yeah.
And it's a Google map, and we have over 100 places that you could go. And, so this was one of those places that was on the list, and we decided we were going to do. So we'll play that for you in a minute, but we do like to take a second and talk about things that we get sent to us, because we do say, hey, if you'd like to share anything at all, we have a toll-free number for you.
Oh, yeah. That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
Yeah. And from there, you can share if you have any experience you want to talk about or a place that we should go. You can kind of give us an idea of what's going on and share that, and we'll be more than happy to play it.
Yeah.
Or to at least talk about it. We do also have a contact form, or if you don't want a phone call or call us and leave a voicemail, you can go to our website, which is creepgeeks.com, and click on the contact link at the top. And you can basically, send us like a little message, a little email, if you will, or just, fill out the contact information of what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And when we get those, we actually talk about them, and we do have a couple. So.
Yeah. The first one actually comes from a Sean, and he wrote, "Hello, first of all, just wanted to say I enjoy the podcast and I've been tuning in every week for some time now. You guys do a wonderful job highlighting the paranormal throughout the region. In honor of the upcoming spooky season, he thinks it would be a great idea if we could do a podcast on haunted locations in Western NC. My friends and I are looking to get a road trip together to explore some of the more famous and off-the-beaten-path haunted locations in the area. I'm a skeptic who wants to believe, and I'm hoping that this year will be my year to experience something paranormal. I'll start the list off by sharing a couple of reported haunted locations in my neck of the woods." He shares a link to Golden Valley Ghosts, which is basically Fellowship Baptist Church. He's been there several times during the day and the night. While I've never had any experiences there, it is creepy because the church is semi-abandoned. They only have church there twice a year, and it's very isolated up on a mountain with a couple-mile gravel road leading up to it. You even have to drive over a small and reportedly haunted creek to get to it. The church is ramshackle and is open to visitors to come in and sign the guest book. The graveyard is extremely old, which adds to the creepy ambiance. He gives a link. We'll share that link as well. It gives details about some of the hauntings for that particular area. Now, as he mentioned before, he's had yet to experience anything there, so he can't relay any stories, but he's looking forward to stories and accounts of things. Now, he also...
He goes through and he actually talks about their most famous ghost story in his town.
Yeah.
And we're not quite going to talk about that just yet, because that's the place that we're going to go, because it's not that far away from us, so we can kind of check it out.
Yeah.
Talk about it. So, and that was something that a reason why we kind of want to put this in here for this particular episode of the podcast is because we do have places in Western North Carolina on our map.
Yes.
That we've been sort of accumulating places to go. Like, for example, the Brown Mountain Lights area, there's two areas that you can go to see the Brown Mountain Lights. One winds up being better than the other, and we've talked about that. Also, Thomas Divide Overlook.
The Mason Marker out
the Mason Marker out there. It's kind of around Thomas Divide Overlook as well. It's about 4 or 5 miles away from it. So there's several places.
The Road to Nowhere.
Road to Nowhere, Helen's Bridge, the Pink Lady that you can see in the Park Grove Hotel. Stuff like that. So anyway, to tell Sean, if he's listening, and I hope you are, we really appreciate you sending this in to us, so that it gives us a couple places to look for. And we also have a list of places that are on the map, and we're going to put a link in there so that you can kind of check it out, that you might want to take a look at. Including also the Paranormal Museum, a Bigfoot and Paranormal Museum that we went to in North Carolina. There's also Devil's Tramping Ground, and there's other things like that we have in there listed as well. So hopefully it'll be good for you to kind of help you out there if you're looking. Now, it's entirely possible they've already done their little road trip, but it doesn't mean you can't do it again, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I thought we had two.
We do. The other one is weird because it's new to me. And I feel weird talking about it because it's so new. This is a person named Jim, and he wanted to know if he's also interested in exploring places in Western Carolinas that locals have strange happenings and stuff like that. So he'd like to know the same thing that Sean wanted to know. But he's also wondering if we have looked into the Meadow, a.k.a. the South's Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
Currently being researched by Trey Hudson. And I'm looking that up now, and it looks like it's a book and podcast.
Yeah. So the short answer is no, Jim, we have not done that, and we're going to look into it and see what's up, because we just recently got back off of our trip. So in the span of a month, we have two major events coming up that we don't have to do them because we're full grown. We can do whatever we want, but that we're going to do, and we're definitely looking for some more things to do, especially over the wintertime, to sort of,
Oh, it's not a book. It's on Audible. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyway, if you send some things into us or you do the contact form and we catch them, we put them in the podcast.
Yeah.
So we just thought we'd kind of put that in there. One of the things that we also do, and I almost skipped over this, is the whole idea of the stone tape theory. Yeah. So, do you know what the stone tape theory is?
Yes, I do. And it kind of ties into the Dead Children's Playground, because the stone tape theory, to sum it up very briefly, is the speculation that ghosts and hauntings are analogous. Are tied to what?
Nothing.
I can't say it. I'm tired. It is way past my bedtime.
Yeah.
What is it? Analogous?
That sounds better than what you were saying.
All right. To tape recordings, and that mental impressions during emotional or traumatic events can be projected in the form of energy or recorded onto rocks and other items and replayed under certain conditions. Now, that's a very broad definition.
Yeah.
Paranormal researchers and people who are really into the metaphysical community take it a step further, saying it has to be certain types of stone. So, Spruce Pine, North Carolina, there's a high concentration of quartz and other minerals. Those particular minerals are very conducive to the stone tape theory, in the sense that the minerals will absorb energy from traumatic events, and then if conditions are right, whether it's the time of year, time of day, or even the weather, those particular traumatic events will replay in the physical world.
Yeah, well, quartz especially makes sense because, quartz, you have quartz crystals, and, they vibrate at a certain frequency, so why not record and hold the information and play it back? And so,
with the Dead Children's Playground, which is actually built into a natural amphitheater that was carved away, and some of the stones were actually used in the graveyard, that theory of the stone tape theory holds some weight.
Yeah.
I mean, if some of those headstones or grave markers were actually pulled from where Drost Park was constructed, it makes sense that whatever horrible feelings or emotions were tied to certain funerals and passings would be held there to be replayed as soon as there's more trauma. Well, there's always going to be trauma because there's funerals held there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The easy way to look at it is if an area was probably going to have the possibility of becoming, like battlefields, right? Battlefields, terribly traumatic things happen. And if there was ever a place that would record that sort of psychic or just traumatic history, it would definitely be like a battlefield, especially if the rock is right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a thing, and it's a thing that I think a lot of people in general know about, but don't know about.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm really torn about the theory. I think the theory is interesting and holds weight, but I also sometimes think it's a theory, and people aren't going to like this. It's a theory held by like fence riding skeptics. Like they're willing to concede so much. Like, oh, well, it's not actually ghosts like everybody thinks. It's just a physical replay of something that happened in the past.
Yeah.
Well, not realizing that opens a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Boy, that can of worms will get you. Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah. I like the idea of stone tape theory. It explains like residual haunts and things like that, where people keep repeating, or whatever happens and keeps getting repeated over and over and over and over again. People they'll say, oh, you'll see this at a certain time or whatever. Yeah. I like the idea that there's some kind of reasoning behind it.
Okay.
Like a loop, if you will. But anyway. This is one of those things where there's so many different things that go into the conditions to make this sort of thing happen. But the good thing is that you have a higher likelihood of experiencing something yourself if you're going to investigate.
Yeah.
So if the stone tape theory holds true for the Dead Children's Playground, right, the Drost Park, then you should be more likely to have an experience should you go. If you go at the right time and the conditions are right, than if you just did not.
Which is why, like, half the websites we use to research suggested going between the hours of 10 p.m. and 3 a.m.
Yeah.
However, all the signs posted at the park said this place closes 1 hour after sunset.
Yeah.
All over the park.
And plus, to be honest with you, we weren't going to stay in Alabama for a whole day. We had things to do, places to go, and since our trip was going off the rails pretty quickly, so we kind of had to go through and do some things. But while we were there, we decided to go ahead and do a little bit of an investigation and kind of walk around and hopefully sort of describe what we've seen. Now, on top of that, we did video as well. So there is a link in our show notes to the video we did. It's on our YouTube channel. If you look up CreepGeeks, you'll see it for the Dead Children's Playground. So, so we have a link to the video that you can watch. If you like it, subscribe. A little thumbs up. If you don't like it, subscribe and thumbs down. It's okay. Either way, at the end of the day, it's all right. But we did record some information, and we kind of went through and did a little walk around, did a little bit of an investigation, and we decided to take the audio and put it to where you could listen to it basically right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so here in Huntsville, Alabama, and there is a children's playground in a cemetery. And evidently, this cemetery playground, people have seen things, heard things, and experienced things. Now, we're here during the day because we're traveling, and we pulled up, and we've had a couple people so far tell us some crazy stories. One of the big things that people say is that the swings move. So these little swings, and you'll have one swing occupied, and then the others may start, or there'll just be one random swing swinging on its own. People hear noises, children, all sorts of crazy stuff.
The small array of simple playground equipment includes swings, a modern jungle gym. It is set in a low spot of the graveyard and surrounded by rocks and trees on 3 sides, adding a claustrophobic effect to it. The historic cemetery began running out of room in 2007, and officials from the city of Huntsville decided to raise the play area to make room for more burials. Yet the locals were so outraged at the loss of this playground that a new playground was built, bringing the site back from the dead, so to speak. Today, the playground is known as Dead Children's Playground, and the mundane site has accumulated a deep catalog of supernatural associations. As locals and believers would tell it, the swings can often be found to sway by themselves. Spheres of cold ghost light can be seen floating around, and even the specters of little kids have been spotted having a little midnight fun.
And then there's one of the mausoleums, and I don't know which one it is, but I've always heard there's I don't know how old she was, but she was young. I heard that there was a young girl that was buried in one of the mausoleums in a rocking chair. And that at certain times, that if you go up there, you can hear the rocker rocking. But I thought I seen something like a little boy standing there in a white t-shirt. But, of course, I can't say for sure that's what it was. It could have just been a glare off of something. There's been a few times I've kind of wanted to come up here at night, but I'm kind of scared to.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't even made it down here yet. I've been talking to people for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. And then
So, what do you have?
I'm assuming this is another paranormal investigation group's rechargeable batteries.
Spoils.
They were along this wall edge, and there's many little tucked away, like little spots.
So if you're a paranormal investigation group and you came out here with your gear and you bought your rechargeable tungsten batteries off of Amazon and you're missing two, the CreepGeeks Podcast has them, and we will use them.
They were near some purple decorative feathers and some other stuff.
Here you go.
So.
Yep, kind of crazy. Yeah. So I think we'll just do a quick walk around.
Now, what's weird is up there, there's like a trail if you can get up on the stone.
Well, that's what people say too, is that, you know, they'll hear things up around the rock walls at the top. Noises, they'll see trees moving for no reason, but I'm wondering if a lot of the swings moving and things like that are because this whole thing is kind of like in a bowl, and if you have wind blowing across the top of the bowl, it creates turbulence underneath and maybe could make the swings move. You know? Because you kind of got to try to be a little skeptical just to see. It is a slightly creepy place, though. Okay, so people talk about hearing noises and sounds like things are being thrown. There's these fruit trees. We don't know what kind of fruit it is. It's some kind of weird fruit.
Green brain looking.
They're like green brain. We actually looked them up one time. Anyway, these big, heavy, softball-sized brain looking fruits fall out of trees periodically. So it's entirely possible that some of the stuff that people may be hearing, like things being thrown, are these weird brain fruits. So I'm actually going to walk over here and take a look at these weird brain fruit things. See what they are. I don't know. Let's see. Join us.
There's a whole bunch over here just out of the line of sight of the playground.
Very wet.
So when those ones fall, it's just out of sight of the playground, so you don't know where the noise came from.
Yeah.
And then if you look over here, this is where Pepper wants to look. Some critters are already stuffing them in the hole.
Weird.
Pepper, get away from there.
Oh no, kind of strange.
Or speaking. If you could knock on something nearby.
No, that sound that we hear.
Yeah.
That's a squirrel eating some kind of walnut. And I would know what a walnut sounds like. I had one blast me in the head the other day. See, you hear him gnawing on something? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh. If anything is here with us, could you tell us about yourself? We have another device with us, and this lets us know if you're here. Did you pass away here, or were you buried in the graveyard nearby? When or what year did you pass away? How old were you when you passed away?
Let's do some playback. Okay, so while we're here, did some EVP. Right. Look for some EMF. Don't really see anything. So, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just means we're not seeing anything. I don't know. Overall, it's kind of a neat place, I think. People come here and they do investigations, evidently periodically, as the spoils of the leftovers, you know what I mean? Or were found, the AA batteries, rechargeable. I don't know. I would come here and check it out. It looks like it happens here a lot. And this park closes, it says 1 hour after sunset it's closed, but it looks like people just come up here anyway.
Yeah.
So, you should check it out. What's it called again? The Maple Grove, Maple Lane, Maple Hill? Maple Hill Lane.
What? No. Maple Hill Cemetery Playground.
So yeah, it looks like people come here and they do guest investigations all the time, right? Yeah. So what was it called again? Maple Hill?
Maple Hill Cemetery Playground.
Maple Hill Cemetery Playground. You should come check it out if you want. So yeah, we're here. Didn't really see anything. Been watching the swings though, because that was supposed to be a thing. The swings move. Yeah. And I think I even seen this on one of these internet / cable TV shows where the swings were swinging around. All I can say is that if the swings are swinging around, being as you're in a bowl like this, it's probably the cause is wind, even though you can't feel it from on high. I don't know. But,
I actually feel pretty good here.
Yeah, it doesn't feel.
It's calm.
Yeah, it's soothing. It's
but
restful.
It changes once it gets a little darker.
Yeah, and we hear that too. So who knows? All right, we're out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very exciting. So anyway, there you go. We checked it out. We didn't really experience too much. We did possibly come up with some reasons why people might be hearing some weird stuff, but we don't know. I mean, if we had been there at night, yeah, maybe with a bunch of other people investigating, who knows? Things probably would have been different, because if you go to YouTube, there's a bunch of channels where people are experiencing all sorts of crazy stuff. They're like, oh my God, did you see this? But I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still pretty cool, though. And if you're in Huntsville, Alabama, definitely go check it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? So look for?
I mean, yes, it's a place to check out if you're in the general area. I wouldn't do a cross-country road trip.
Oh, no, I didn't say that at all.
I
said if you happen to be in Huntsville, Alabama.
Yes.
You know. But it was an interesting side trip. I kind of wanted to go and check it out, and I'm kind of glad we did. And we did have a little storytelling from a gentleman there. He was talking about weird stuff, and he gave me lots of places to go in Alabama to check out. But the thing is that they weren't like specific addresses, so like I would never remember, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, if you go down here and
Which is like a tip, okay? If you send a suggestion or you talk to any paranormal investigator and you know a place that's really high in activity, or you're aware of a place with a lot of high strangeness, be specific. Not everybody has lived in the same town for 20 years and knows to drive past the place that burnt down 3 years ago, but now it's a gas station.
Hey, now.
I know.
But yeah, it's true. But, yeah. It was weird, man. It was a weird experience. I'm glad we went, and you know, it kind of is what it is. But that was sort of the beginning of our trip, right? I mean, we went to the largest gas station in the world, and I do have to say that when the walnut, the experience I had with the walnut blasting me in the head was putting solar panels, or trying to install the solar panels on our van. And there's a big walnut tree that we have, right? Mm-hmm. And these things drop off, and it sounds like somebody dropping a softball.
True.
From like 100 feet, right? And they smash through branches and stuff. And I heard it coming. I heard this thing go blink and start smashing through leaves and branches, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to get hit. It's been doing it all day, right?
Yeah.
When it hits the van, it sounded like a cannon going off. It's crazy loud. Yeah. This thing hit me right in the pointy part of the top of my head, like dead center. And so it brained me, and I'm up on a scaffolding. I'm like, in there, you know, I'm not going to lie, it hurt. I was okay, but I was just like, I mean, it was like perfect aim. Mm-hmm. So, and it even left a mark on my hat. My hat provided exactly zero protection. And it sounded like a large coconut getting knocked on. It was like, what?
But going back to like sounds and hearing things, did you hear while we were walking away from part of the playground, the swings going off?
Yeah, I did.
Did you notice that?
No. I mean, I looked, but we were looking at this big green tree brain looking fruit things.
Yeah, and then it did it again, and I'm trying to remember. I was holding a camera, and I was pointing at some rocks at the time.
Yeah. No, I was looking when we were up there doing EVP session, because we did EVP, and we did EMF, and we also had a tri-field meter, and didn't really see anything at all. And we also had the audio recorder, and I went back and played all the audio the past couple of days and listened to it. And we didn't have anything, because if we did, I would have put it in there. But primarily what we wound up doing was we did a walk around and check some things out, scored some batteries that you found, which is pretty nice. You know, I recorded that gentleman talking a little bit.
So if you are a paranormal team and you lost your rechargeable batteries.
Yeah. You may or may not get them back.
Yeah. Care of CreepGeeks Podcast.
Yeah. So it was a thing, right? But yeah, I mean, it was okay. I enjoyed it. It wasn't as cool as what we seen on TV, but I mean, that's kind of them's the breaks.
Yeah.
But it was good enough. So, and that was just the start of our trip, and we do have lots of things coming, including one sort of surprise investigation that we got to do, which was this is. You know, I don't want to give it away, right? It's like a spoiler.
And see, I want to so bad because I have so many pictures for Instagram and TikTok, you know?
And you know what? You should be checking it out, because we do have lots of pictures, and we have lots of Instagram stuff going up, and we have like TikToks, and we've been working it, trying to get all this content up there, and there's just so much.
Yeah. Now, some of it is going to be exclusive to our Patreon people.
Yeah, our patrons on Patreon.
Yeah.
You know, because we had the bandwidth. And if you listen to this podcast for any length of time, you know that we are in an area of Western North Carolina, in the Appalachian area, right? And we have garbage internet. It is what it is. People around us have great internet, but where we just happen to be located, it's like we're in a bowl.
Yeah.
That's it kind of is what it is as far as like the lack of internet. So, but when we get out and about and we do have internet and we can do these sort of things, we do it as much as we can. We even went through and we sort of have like a mobile live stream setup that we've been sort of testing on the road a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is good because we have an upcoming event.
True.
That we're looking forward to. It was kind of canceled last year. It's back this year, and hopefully it kind of gets off, and it happens.
It's back this year, and there are more people. I mean, this started off, it's a first-time event, but it's backed by people with a lot of paranormal conference experience and some amazing folks are going to be attending and speaking. This is going to be Wild and Weird Con, or by Wild and Weird West Virginia. It's described as UFO, Cryptid, and Paranormal Conference. If you click on the link in our show notes, you'll see there's all sorts of guests there, ranging from the folks at the Mothman Museum to Eric Altman, Seth Breedlove, Dave Spinks, a whole bunch of people. There's going to be special guests, vendors, workshops, and more. I believe tickets are still available, but click on the link in our podcast so that you can find out for yourself.
Yeah.
It's happening. When is it happening? I should know this.
Well, we're going to be there on the 4th, but it's supposed to be the 5th and 6th, I believe. So, yeah, and it's in West Virginia. So if you're there, or if you're, close enough to where you want to drive and check it out, if there's tickets, man, go.
Yeah, and it's Chapman.
I think there is tickets.
Yeah. It's Chapmanville, West Virginia, which puts you kind of right in the center of all the weird that happens in that region.
Yeah, not too terribly far from Mothman stuff.
Or Flatwoods, or anything else, like reports of
haunted amusement parks out that way.
Reports of Bigfoot, sheep squatch, even, all these weird high strangeness things are going to be right out there. So why not celebrate with what's looking to be a really awesome conference?
Yep, we're going to be there. And when I was reading who's who and who's going to be, it's like, we know that guy, and we know them, and we know them, and we know. So it should be fun. So, yeah, you should definitely check it out. And we're going to talk about those guys and hopefully the event and how wonderful it was when it happens later on. So, it should be good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. But, yeah, definitely check out our social media stuff with Instagram. It's CreepGeeks. Facebook page that we have is CreepGeeks. I mean, we have lots of stuff that's going up.
If you have a show idea or you want to start a discussion about something we talk about, join the Facebook group. That's where you can actually interact with us directly, plus, share some silly paranormal memes. As far as supporting the show, we appreciate your support by subscribing to our podcast or even checking us out on Patreon. That's going to be patreon.com/CreepGeeks. Again, need to reach out, anything like that, contact@creepgeeks.com. Or give us a call. That's going to be 575-208-4025.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap it up, I guess, is what we're going to do. So yeah, this is, we have lots of stuff to talk about. This trip was actually pretty good for us. So it's going to be a good time. So be sure, I can't talk, man. I can't talk.
Yeah.
It's that walnut blasted me.
It's not the walnut.
It was so loud, a coconut noise.
Playground either, okay? It's
what?
Neither. Yeah.
What do you mean it's not a haunted playground?
Because when you were done talking to those people, you were just tongue-tied for a hot minute.
Yeah.
So, which is probably going to be a separate podcast episode about how the paranormal affects Greg.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that should be a whole episode unto itself.
Hey man, sometimes this sucks the life out of you. Shockingly enough, right? Okay, so it is what it is. But anyway, be sure to check us out. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let us know. But we do appreciate you tuning into the CreepGeeks Podcast. And this was season 6, episode 227, where we talk about... Yeah, no, it is. Dead Children's Playground, listener comments, and where we'll be next. So tune in. We'll see you again. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
See you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.